والله يدعو إلى دار السلام ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu rasulullah. Welcome to our program, Lifting the Fog, a program designed to remove the misconceptions, misunderstandings, and the misrepresentations about Islam and what Islam teaches. I'm your host, Yusuf Estes. For the next few minutes, I'd like to talk about a subject which is a bit dear to me and near to all of the Muslims, and that is the subject of dealing with some of the harsh questions and the attacks and bad treatment coming toward Islam and what it's teaching. I recall many years ago, before I was a Muslim, in fact I was preaching Christianity, and someone told me that I was going to be meeting a Muslim. I recall exactly what came in my mind. Oh no, these guys are terrorists, hijackers, kidnappers. They don't believe in God. They kiss the ground 5 times a day, and they're worshiping a black box in the desert. I remember those words. And I remember when I actually met a Muslim, I was surprised that he didn't seem to be anything like what I anticipated. In fact, as I got to know more about Islam, I realized that in fact the exact opposite was the case. The things that people had been telling us, what we read in the newspaper, what we saw on the television and have been observing through magazines and various periodicals, was just misrepresentation and in some cases outright lies. So this program that we're doing right now is intended to remove that fog, that misunderstanding. And when we talk about this subject, especially and our topic tonight is the subject of violence, harsh treatment. Because, in fact, if that's something to do with a religion, this man right here does not want to be part of it. I don't want anything to do with violence or harsh treatment. Many people have said that Islam is about this. But what was their evidence? And this is what we're going to really be focusing on here. If someone would come to me or to you and say to you, why is Islam so violent? Why do you have so much hatred in Islam? Or my religion, let's say if it was a Christian perhaps, he might say, my religion is a religion of love, whereas yours is one of being too strict and too harsh and having violence, people beating people. You know it's not true, and I know it's not true, but how are we going to respond to them? What would be the manner in which way we would address such a thing as this? Well, first of all, we need to set a tone for the conversation that's going to be on even keel. And the way to do that, inshallah, God willing, is to take them off this harsh position by saying, thank you for asking me about my religion. This really helps a lot when you say that. And then if they've got more they want to say, let them say their piece first. Don't argue with them. Don't try to establish some kind of a munadhara or debate, because this is not about a debate. Whenever you're going to have a debate, you're talking about a subject which is where both people have an opinion and both opinions could have some veracity. But when somebody is bringing something that's an outright lie, something that's a mistake, then that's not something to debate about. Let them bring what they have. And then tell them, okay, is that it? Do you have anything else? No, okay. Thank you for asking me about my religion. The next thing you want to mention is the fact that in Islam we have to tell the truth. It isn't permissible for me to lie. I can't tell them something that's not true. In fact, Allah has told us in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu wattaqullah wa qulu qawlan sadida. Here we see a verse of the Quran ordering us, if you've got belief, if you're a believer, if you have faith, then you have to have this taqwa for Allah. Fear Allah and always speak the truth. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, told us that a liar is not a believer. So the next point is to tell them we also have the proof. We have the truth and we have the proof. The proof meaning that whatever I tell you, you can check it out for yourself. Because there's evidence authenticated and preserved for 1,400 plus years. And you can look to it yourself, translated into so many different languages, exactly what is Islam. The story of Muhammad, his biography, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is known as the Sirah of the Prophet, is well preserved. In fact, there's not anybody on the planet that has had so many biographies written about him as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So understanding that, we let them know that we also have the Quran. Everything about the Quran is preserved the same way. There's no doubt for us about what the Quran teaches. So with this amount of historical evidence available, it's obvious that we couldn't tell a lie anyway. They could check it out. So we have the truth, we have the proof. The evidence is there. The next thing we should mention to them that whenever somebody asks a question, sometimes you have to analyze the question. You have to look to the question and see, is it really a question or does it have statements in it that aren't true? In which case we have to straighten it out. And then the next thing. The next thing is that while I'm giving you the answer and you're listening to the response, if you hear something that makes you say, gee, I didn't know that. Wow, this is something nice for me. If you hear yourself saying you like it, it makes sense, then I've got a question for you. Would you then be prepared to consider your position and think about worshiping God alone without partners? Because guess what? That's what Islam is about. Worshiping God without partners. And this is the way. Islam is the way. Then usually what I like to do right here is wait for them to respond. Now if they indicate to me that they're willing to listen to what I have to say, and they're willing to consider the answer, then I think it's fair that I should take my time and sit with them to the best of my ability and try to help them in getting a better grasp on what Islam is really about. So what I like to do then is to break down the words. We're using things out of the Arabic language. It's not fair. It's not fair to them, and it's really not fair to us to try to present this message in another language other than Arabic, unless we qualify what we say and explain the words. Even some Muslims today who don't speak Arabic, but they follow the Quran in Arabic, are not aware of some of the beautiful tones of the Quran. They don't really get the idea of what the beautiful language is here and how to use it. I'll give you an example. Muslims always talk about the word Islam. We use it so much, nobody ever bothers to translate that. You never see in any books that this is a language of peace or a religion of submission. We say Islam. That's all we say. So let's look at that word and break it down, though, and find out what's in it. Tell them that's what you want to do. And it comes from the root, salama. Salama. And from there come salam, taslim, istislam, taslimu, and peace, salam. All of this is coming out of there. And what it means when you have the perfected verb in the form of Islam, this is a verb, it's calling for an action. It's a relationship between two things. The relationship here, of course, is between Allah and what He has created, us. So this needs to be understood on 5 words, which means, first of all, surrender, to give up. Submission, which is to totally submit to some terms. Obey. Now this means to actually adhere to the submission. In other words, follow through on what you said you're going to do. And then the next one is sincerity. The 4th word is sincerity. It means that you're going to do these things whether anybody is watching or not. You're going to do it because you are really sincere for the sake of this particular action. And then finally, peace, salam. The peace in Islam indicates the salam between you and the Almighty. Because when there is total peace between you and God, this transcends even the human emotion called love. It goes far above that. This deep inner peace that comes about as a result of knowing that you are surrendering, submitting, obeying, and in sincerity, all of this, and in peace. If you think about it like that, I doubt seriously if you'd get much of an argument out of a Christian, a Jew, or a Hindu, or anybody else, because it makes sense that a person should be trying to obey their Creator. They should be attempting to do their best to be in line with what God wants them to do. But most people don't take the time to understand that this word is not an Arabic word that Muhammad, peace be upon him, came up with 1400 years ago and said, okay, I got a new religion called Islam and you have to do it. In some of our other programs, we've really broken it down even more. We talked about the word deen and explained that that's a way of life. We talked about the word Allah and why this is the perfect word to describe the only one worthy to be creation, the creator of all the creation. Because it's Allah who makes everything, yet He's not made. And the word Allah actually shows you in it because it can't be made plural. It can't have anything come after it. Additionally, it's not male or female, so it's not like creation. We realize that Allah is alive, but we don't compare Him to life in this creation. We talked about these things to greater extents in some of the other programs, but I want to set the tone for what we're going to talk about now, because when people are coming to you and asking about why is there terrorism in Islam, and why is there hatred and animosity and vengeance, violence, etc., it's important for us to calm this down and set a tone that people could relax and say, okay, I get what you're saying, that makes sense to me. And using that mindset, then we can go into the next part of our subject, which is to answer the particular question. Now, there's going to be times when you won't really know how to answer it. You just want to say a general answer. Like, for instance, well, no, Islam is really not like that. Well, that's a good answer. It's true, but it won't be very convincing. They're expecting you to say that. So it would be a good idea for us as Muslims to attend halakas and circles to get the proper knowledge, to also read more books and to sit with the scholars. Allah even tells us in the Quran how to seek knowledge, and He gives us two things to do. One thing He tells us in the Quran that we need to do is to say, Rabbi zidni ilma, my Lord, increase my knowledge. The other thing is to go to the people of knowledge and sit with them and learn from them. And that's basically why we're having this program right now. What I'd like to do is to set this tone so that you can see how to use this in all of your answers. And then I'm going to be specific and come to this particular question about the violence and activities, etc., that we hear about in Islam, and focus on that in the next part of